Everyone keeps asking if a recession is coming. They're asking the wrong question. Recessions bruise, they don't break nations. What's gathering now reaches deeper than markets into classrooms, courtrooms, borders, and the stories we tell our children about who we are. When institutions wobble, currencies inflate, elites exempt themselves, and neighbors retreat into tribes, downturns become detonators. History remembers these moments not as slumps, but as turning points. Rome didn't fall because prices rose. It fell when citizens gave up believing in the common good. The next few years won't test our wallets alone. They'll test our character, our unity, our future. Number one, the calm before the storm. Economic downturns have long been treated as temporary storms on the horizon, often feared yet historically endured. The American experience with recessions from the Great Depression to the 2008 financial crisis shows that pain is real, but recovery is possible when society remains resilient. Yet today, the danger lies not merely in shrinking markets or faltering banks. What looms ahead feels different, heavier, and more enduring than the cyclical nature of past downturns. The word recession might even be too mild to capture what is unfolding across the cultural, political, and institutional fabric of the nation. When a society faces recession, it measures the damage in numbers, unemployment, inflation, debt, or GDP decline. But beneath those statistics lies the human element, confidence, cohesion, and belief in shared purpose. At present, these intangible yet vital foundations are visibly cracking. Households may endure temporary hardship, yet if they simultaneously lose faith in their schools, their courts, or their elections, then hardship is magnified into a deeper crisis. The storm before us is not defined by Wall Street alone. It is defined by the erosion of collective strength that once enabled recovery. The question becomes whether the nation possesses the resilience to rise again when so many cultural underpinnings have already weakened. Historical parallels remind us that civilizations often stumble not solely because of fiscal missteps, but because they ignore warning signs. Rome survived repeated financial strains yet faltered when its civic spirit collapsed. Britain endured economic shocks after 2 world wars but faced decline once national will eroded. America now walks that same precarious line, where the numbers of a recession distract from the wider unraveling. To call what is coming a mere recession risks comforting ourselves with a label too small for the reality it seeks to explain. Number 2, beyond economics. As civilization in flux, recessions rise and fall like tides, leaving behind lessons but rarely rewriting the identity of a nation. What America faces today carries a far more existential weight. The language of economists, growth rates, stock indexes, consumer confidence cannot fully explain the unease seeping through daily life. This moment resembles not just an economic contraction, but a civilizational shift. The United States, long a model of stability and innovation, now resembles older powers that once believed themselves immune to decline. The issue is not simply about dollars and cents, but about whether the very foundations of the republic remain intact. History warns us that great powers often collapse from within rather than being conquered outright. Athens, once unrivaled in art and democracy, fell not from poverty alone, but from internal quarrels and exhaustion. Rome did not crumble simply because trade slowed, but because civic duty, discipline, and shared identity dissolved. The United States finds itself echoing these patterns, where cultural exhaustion threatens longevity more than deficits or inflation ever could. When institutions grow weak, and when citizens lose belief in their shared destiny, prosperity becomes fragile and fleeting. The erosion of civic virtue is more dangerous than a downturn in Wall Street indices. This is why speaking of recession alone misleads. Temporary hardship can be endured if the spirit of the people remains unbroken. What makes the present so concerning is the hollowing out of cultural resilience at the very moment economic strains are mounting. When decline strikes both the wallet and the soul, recovery becomes far less certain. America must confront whether it is still a confident, united civilization capable of weathering storms, or whether it is sliding into the long, irreversible drift that has marked the decline of every great power before it.
Number 3. The erosion of trust in institutions. For much of American history, institutions acted as stabilizing forces during times of crisis. Courts were seen as impartial, schools as dedicated to knowledge, the press as a watchdog, and government as a referee rather than a player. Today, that perception has collapsed. Many citizens believe the media amplifies partisan agendas rather than truth. Universities indoctrinate instead of educate, and political institutions serve narrow interests rather than the common good. This erosion has left society without a shared foundation, making it far harder to navigate challenges that once could be endured together. When people no longer believe in their institutions, they begin to lose faith in each other. The justice system, once respected even in disagreement, is now seen as weaponized, depending on political affiliation. Corporate America, once admired for innovation, is accused of chasing social virtue signals while abandoning workers. These shifts deepen cynicism, and cynicism corrodes resilience. In earlier recessions, Americans may have felt hardship, yet they believed recovery was possible because the system itself was still trusted. Today, many doubt whether the system even functions for them at all. That disbelief transforms ordinary recessions into something more perilous. History shows that republics unravel when institutions lose legitimacy. Once courts are distrusted, laws are viewed as optional. Once the press is distrusted, information itself becomes fragmented into partisan echo chambers. The danger is not only dysfunction but fragmentation, where communities stop believing they share a nation at all. Recessions can be survived with effort and patience, but the collapse of institutional faith leaves societies rudderless. America is entering territory where hardship is compounded by suspicion, and where recovery seems unattainable because the very structures meant to deliver it no longer command respect. That is the storm looming beyond economics.
Number 4. Political paralysis and partisan tribes. Economic shocks require responsive leadership. Yet the United States faces a government mired in paralysis. Partisan divisions have hardened into tribal identities where compromise is seen as betrayal rather than statesmanship. Instead of confronting pressing challenges, rising debt, porous borders, global instability, leaders devote their energy to symbolic battles that excite their base but solve little. This dysfunction transforms economic hardship into something more enduring, because the machinery of governance cannot produce timely, pragmatic solutions. When the public sees gridlock at the very moment action is needed, despair deepens. Both political parties share blame for this condition. One emphasizes redistributive promises without addressing fiscal reality, while the other often substitutes rhetoric for coherent policy. Each side seeks short-term victories to energize loyalists rather than structural reforms to benefit the nation. The spectacle of impeachment threats, endless investigations, and performative hearings illustrates a system more invested in spectacle than governance. A society cannot weather downturns effectively when its leaders treat crises as stages for drama rather than opportunities for repair. The absence of genuine collaboration ensures that every hardship is magnified by stagnation. History again offers warnings. The Roman Senate became paralyzed by factions long before the empire fell. Civil wars within Athens exhausted the city before foreign enemies struck. In America, similar patterns are evident as politics turns from problem-solving to permanent campaigning. Citizens grow cynical not because disagreements exist, but because those disagreements never yield constructive outcomes. A recession is painful, but when coupled with political paralysis, it can metastasize into something far worse, a systemic crisis of legitimacy. The nation risks reaching a point where neither party can claim to govern effectively, leaving the republic exposed to both internal and external shocks. Number 5, cultural amnesia and historical blindness. A society that forgets its past loses the compass needed to navigate its future. America today suffers from a growing cultural amnesia, where its history is not studied for wisdom but selectively condemned for flaws. This shift erodes civic pride, replacing confidence with guilt and suspicion. Citizens no longer share a unifying narrative of who they are or how their nation came to exist. Without that shared memory, resilience in times of hardship weakens because people doubt whether the nation is even worth preserving. A recession may batter an economy, but cultural blindness threatens to dissolve the very identity of a people. Every generation has debated the meaning of history, but never has there been such a wholesale rejection of national foundations. Founding fathers are portrayed more as villains than visionaries, and achievements once celebrated are reframed as stains. Schools increasingly prioritize ideological narratives over balanced perspectives, leaving young Americans unsure of what binds them together beyond grievance. This rewriting of memory is dangerous, for when citizens see their history only as shameful, they lose the motivation to defend their institutions or sacrifice for the common good. Hardship then becomes not a shared challenge but another reason to divide. History again provides sobering reminders. The decline of Rome was hastened when its citizens forgot the virtues of discipline and service that once defined them. Post-war Britain faltered when it lost confidence in its imperial legacy and ceased to believe in its global role. America risks a similar fate. An economic downturn is survivable if a people remember their strengths. But if cultural amnesia prevails, then no recovery can restore what has been lost. A nation without memory becomes a nation without direction, drifting into decline long before numbers on a ledger confirm it. Number 6, economic strain meets social fracture. Recessions test the endurance of citizens, yet when combined with deep cultural divides, they can tear societies apart. Rising inflation, mounting debt, and shrinking opportunities weigh heavily on households, particularly those in the middle and working classes. But unlike earlier eras, hardship today is not endured collectively. Instead, it becomes a weapon in the ongoing culture wars. One group blames elites, another blames populists, and all the while unity dissolves. Economic strain no longer produces solidarity, it produces suspicion, anger, and resentment between neighbors. The American past provides examples of resilience. During the Great Depression, families endured scarcity but retained a sense of shared struggle. During the oil shocks of the 1970s, frustration was real, yet citizens still believed in eventual renewal. The current environment feels different because hardship coincides with a fragmented civic spirit. Social media amplifies grievances, identity politics deepens division, and every challenge is filtered through partisan lenses. Instead of confronting inflation or job losses as a people, Americans confront each other, turning economic pain into a battlefield for cultural conflicts. This dynamic magnifies the severity of downturn. When economic hardship is compounded by cultural fracture, it undermines faith in recovery itself. Families may endure fewer opportunities, but if they simultaneously lose belief in fairness, merit, or national unity, despair takes hold. That despair is far more corrosive than unemployment numbers or interest rates. History shows that nations under stress either rally together or unravel apart. America stands at that crossroads, where a recession is no longer just a financial event, but a mirror reflecting whether the republic still possesses the cohesion to withstand adversity. The danger lies not only in shrinking wealth, but in the shrinking bonds that once sustained renewal. Number 7, the role of elites in the managerial class. No civilization endures when its leaders separate themselves from the governed. In today's America, a distinct managerial class has emerged, wealthy, credentialed, and insulated from the hardships they legislate over. These elites occupy the commanding heights of politics, finance, academia, and media, yet their decisions often shield themselves while exposing ordinary citizens to risk. Policies are crafted in boardrooms and bureaucracies far removed from the struggles of families confronting rising costs, weakened schools, or unsafe neighborhoods. The result is a widening gulf between rulers and ruled, fueling resentment that accelerates decline. This phenomenon is not new. In late Republican Rome, the senatorial class enjoyed wealth and privilege while the common people bore the burdens of war and taxation. In pre-revolutionary France, elites grew increasingly detached from the realities of hunger and unrest until collapse became unavoidable. America echoes these patterns. Leaders impose regulations they do not follow, promote green energy while relying on fossil-fueled lifestyles, and demand sacrifice from citizens while carving exemptions for themselves. Such hypocrisy corrodes legitimacy. When people see elites prosper in crises, they lose faith that the system operates on fairness. Recessions are survivable when leaders share burdens and inspire collective sacrifice. What makes the present moment so dangerous is that the managerial class appears both aloof and unaccountable. Citizens already disillusioned by cultural and political fracture now witness a ruling tier more committed to preserving its privileges than serving the nation. This perception hardens anger into alienation, a condition far more threatening than temporary financial distress. A republic thrives only when its leaders embody responsibility, not entitlement. If America's elites continue down their current path, the coming storm will not be remembered as a recession, but as the unraveling of trust between the governed and those who claim to govern. Number 8. Lessons from Rome, Athens, and beyond. History's greatest warnings come from civilizations that believe themselves too exceptional to fail. Athens, the cradle of democracy, succumbed not simply because of Sparta's armies, but because internal quarrels drained its strength. Rome, master of the Mediterranean, endured economic crises repeatedly, yet the fatal blow came when civic virtue eroded and elites abandoned responsibility. These stories are not distant relics, they are mirrors. America today shows the same symptoms: internal division, cultural exhaustion, and a leadership class detached from the people. The parallels remind us that decline is rarely sudden. It unfolds slowly until one day it appears irreversible. Economic downturns played roles in these collapses, but they were not decisive. Athens survived hardship when united, but crumbled when factions placed ideology above survival. Rome weathered financial turmoil, but fell when its citizens ceased to believe in their republic. The lesson is clear. Civilizations fall not because they encounter obstacles, but because they forget how to endure them together. America's danger is not inflation alone or national debt alone. It is the weakening of the civic bonds that once transformed hardship into resilience. Without those bonds, no economic recovery can guarantee survival. Other nations offer similar lessons. Post-war Britain, drained of resources, could have redefined its role with vigor, but instead drifted into decline through doubt and hesitation. The Ottoman Empire, once mighty, stagnated when it clung to outdated systems while rivals advanced. Each believed decline was temporary until history proved otherwise. America risks the same fate if it treats this moment as another routine downturn. To call the current struggle a recession understates the threat. The real question is whether the Republic will heed history's warnings or, like so many before, ignore them until it is too late. Number 9. What comes after the illusions break? Recessions end when economies stabilize, but deeper crises linger when illusions collapse. For decades, Americans assumed the dollar would remain unrivaled, borders would stay secure, laws would be applied fairly, and elections would be beyond question. These assumptions form the quiet confidence of national life. Now each of those pillars shows cracks. When illusions break, citizens do not simply feel poorer, they feel unmoored. The sense that tomorrow will resemble yesterday dissolves, replaced by fear that the nation they knew is slipping away. This shift marks the difference between an ordinary downturn and something more severe. Inflation or job losses can be remedied through policy, but shattered confidence cannot be so easily restored. Once citizens doubt the fairness of courts, the strength of borders, or the stability of currency, every policy becomes suspect. Hardship feels permanent because the structures designed to guarantee renewal no longer inspire faith. A society that has lost its illusions discovers whether it possesses real resilience or whether those illusions were the only glue holding it together. What follows this breaking point is uncertain. Some nations confront the truth and rebuild, stripping away false comfort to restore authentic strength. Others drift into decline, unable to replace illusions with genuine unity or discipline. America now faces this decision. The next phase may not resemble a familiar recessionary recovery, but a crossroads where the Republic either rediscovers its foundations or continues unraveling. The danger is not only economic contraction, but the collapse of belief in continuity itself. When illusions give way to stark reality, nations must decide whether to confront their fragility or allow it to consume them entirely. Number 10, a choice between decline or renewal. Every great civilization eventually confronts a defining choice: accept decline as inevitable or rediscover the virtues that once sustained its rise. America is now at such a juncture. The challenges it faces, cultural amnesia, institutional decay, political paralysis, and elite detachment, are not insurmountable, but they require honesty and resolve. What lies ahead is worse than a recession because it is not limited to the balance sheet. It strikes at the character of the nation itself, testing whether citizens still believe enough in their republic to defend it. History shows that nations can recover from dark moments when their people decide survival matters more than faction. Rome's republic never revived once its civic spirit collapsed, but post-war Germany and Japan rebuilt from devastation because discipline and unity were rediscovered. America has not yet crossed the point of no return. Renewal is possible if it recommits to merit over entitlement, citizenship over tribalism, and history as a source of strength rather than shame. These choices require sacrifice, yet sacrifice is the price of survival. The path ahead will demand courage from both leaders and ordinary citizens. Elites must abandon hypocrisy, institutions must reclaim impartiality, and communities must resist the lure of permanent grievance. The alternative is slow erosion until decline becomes irreversible. What is coming may be worse than a recession, but it can also serve as a moment of reckoning. America can emerge either fractured and diminished or stronger and more grounded in its founding principles. The choice belongs not to abstract forces but to its people, who must decide whether to surrender to history's familiar pattern of decline or to defy it. America has endured recessions before, but what approaches now cannot be dismissed as another passing cycle. The warning signs stretch far beyond economic charts into our culture, our politics, and the very institutions that once bound us together. History teaches that civilizations collapse not when they run short of money, but when they run short of unity, resilience, and shared purpose. Rome, Athens, and countless others faltered when they allowed cynicism and division to replace civic duty. The United States now stands at a similar threshold, where decline is not inevitable but becomes likely if ignored. The storm ahead is less about dollars than about direction. Will the nation allow elites, factions, and cultural amnesia to accelerate fragmentation, or will it seize this moment to rediscover discipline, merit, and belief in the common good? The choice is ours, and it demands clarity, courage, and sacrifice. If America can confront these challenges with honesty and resolve, it may yet turn a looming disaster into a renewal. If you found this analysis urgent and necessary, share it with others who care about the future of our country. Subscribe for deeper conversations on history, politics, and culture, and let's keep this dialogue alive.